Vitality so far.
Oh, I like this, Mikyx.
Oh, that's really well done for Mikyx. Hillesang already underneath the tower. Upset trying to do the damage that he can. Explosive cast from Wunder. Hillesang tanking this up. He is sacrificing himself for this play, but the base call will get him out just in time. TP's now from G2. Upset takes 2 tower shots and immediately is killed. Wunder takes another as Hillesang dives into his demise.
Rogue's problem is kind of similar to last year, where they play a bit too much by the book. Maybe against bad teams, that's fine. But against good teams, I think it can be worse, because the good teams will fight you at everything you do. It's because we just take every fight, and then you have to be willing to do it as well.
Side lane with options like the Kia goes hard, the ult, but here comes Inspired. He's trying one shot. Neon, that's big damage. But now Larssen with the follow-up. Are you kidding me? That's still connected. That's one. What is jungle roll? That's the double.
Forward, looking for the looting lullaby. Looking for that sleep. Mikyx in. A 4-man Magnet Storm.
I think it's possible that it's us and G2 in the finals. I feel like there's a lot of spotlights on us. It's gonna be a challenge to keep being at the top.
Time to go. Instantly the fight is now kicking off. Odoamne in the backside, but he's being focused by 4 members, but he's still, the healing is incredible. The luck shot coming up the backside, and we predicted it. I'll say it again. Odoamne is unkillable, and he is shredding the entire team.
Undertow, no tower stands here. Triple going in. Spirit cleave coming out. There's the Ragnarok. Nisqy shuffles forward, and the trade comes in. Jankos, that is disgusting. That is not allowed.
There we go. Welcome back to the analyst desk. Petition to keep that music rolling as we get into the analyst desk, because that was hype. Fantastic video. And G2 Esports versus Rogue is the fight that has defined the season so far. And today, the top teams face off in what could be a preview of the finals. Rogue have never beaten G2 in the regular season. Verius, is today the day?
Could be.
Nice, keeping that hype.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Yeah, I know, I was on the edge. I sat there and I wanted to say no at first, but then at the same time, I've been really impressed with how Rogue have been not only developing throughout the years, but also this split. I think that we're going to talk a lot about today how they've had different approaches to how they approach the game in terms of their draft, and I think that coming into today's matchup, they're going to have something prepared to take down the Titans of G2.
Yeah, that's definitely the key. I think that Rogue's shown so many different play styles. We talked about it in the first few weeks, especially with globals, team fights, winning solo lanes, winning jungle matchups, early game, late game. They've played it all.
They did, talking about marquee matchups all across the board, of course, but as per usual, we're going to look towards the mid lane. Caps versus Larssen. We talked so much about how Larssen is developing in front of our eyes and is taking so many steps forward as each week passes, but you got to be able to beat this guy if you want to make it to the top.
So what was funny was last year we had a clear contrast in mid lane styles, right? The heavy roaming from Caps versus the consistent, the guy that doesn't miss a CS, like he's, what, plus 12 CSD on average at 15, like that's what you would expect from him. But I think that Caps has been roaming a little bit less this split, but also we've been seeing a lot more involvement from Larssen. And I think that it's fair to say that as a player, he has been evolving and developing in a way to recognize some of his weaknesses in the past and try to catch up to the mid lane on the opposite side.
Yeah, Caps to me is more of an explosive player, but he's calmed it down a lot. I don't know if it's a tribute to the meta or things, but I remember Caps just picking Yasuo, going top and diving level 5 and stuff like this. But now the meta's changed to a point where Syndra rise the meta. Either he can go split push or he can go team fight. So I think Caps has definitely not been able to do as much roaming as he probably would want, but I don't think he's outmatched by Larssen at all in the lane phase, although Larssen's stats are really high. I would attribute that to more Azir and more late game scaling picks, which just win lane.
And also, you cannot ever exclude the rest of the team from the players in the mid lane, especially that jungle combination, Jankos versus Inspired. Fantastic matchup as well. I did want to talk specifically about how the teams are coming into this week. G2 had an insane week 6. They were versus Vitality and Fnatic. They absolutely stomped all hell out of both teams. It was crazy. But Rogue, on the other hand, has also shown strong things and had actually their most active week yet in terms of kills, combined kills per minute, actually the highest out of any team in week 6. I wonder if that's a bit of a preview and a bit of a preparation going up versus a team like G2, Kato.
Yeah, definitely. Being so bloody to the point where you're actually the highest killing team in the league, that's so important because I think that comes down to jungle support moving around the map. And like you said, Jankos versus Inspired is the key here. And I think the supports, I've said it a lot, support diff does mean the jungle diff. And I think that if both these supports match up with their junglers, mid lane is obviously the focal point because I think that whichever mid can get the prio and move to sides is going to be the one that can impact the map. But I think the jungle support are the key to unlocking that, and the bloody game will come from the jungle support.
Yeah, last time we saw these guys playing a couple of weeks ago, it was a very, very good game as well. We're going to be covering the picks and bans at the analyst desk. So let's start by talking about a couple of things we may see. In Ready Check, of course, Cadril, we looked at the draft and what they played last time.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest pick in this series is TF. I think both these mid laners like TF a lot.
Series, not a series yet.
Oh, series. Well, game.
Yeah.
This game itself.
We wish.
I wish it was a series. Maybe the finals. But to me, this best of one, I think TF is the most important pick to me. I think both these mid laners play it. It impacts both side lanes really well. And it unlocks 1-3-1 and so many different types of comps that you can run. Winning top, winning bot, winning jungle matchup, anything TF slots in.
I think Rel is also going to be a really big pick. I think that we've already seen how powerful it can be, but the fact that Mikyx got it last week against Fnatic, I think he won't get it again. But also huge credit to Trymbi and how he has been developing as a player. We saw him primarily on engaged supports at the beginning of the split, things like the Rakan that on his very first game was not the strongest, but I think that he has been moving in strength to strength. And I think that putting him on a strong playmaker is also going to be important. So I think that Alistar could be a highly contested pick as well as we get ever closer to the draft.
Yes, we get into the draft right now. Soon we will see what champions both teams will pick to hopefully for Rogue get that first win in the regular season over G2 Esports.
Hold on.
Let's go! G2 versus Rogue. Match of the day. There's so many mini games in this draft in terms of who's gonna oust out who in the draft. Support, for instance, Trymbi, we just mentioned him. The guy's played the most unique champions out of anyone in the league. So yeah, I'm expecting some spicy stuff.
I think that he's shown quite a bit of flexibility, and I also think that, as Kate was saying earlier, Rogue have been trying out a wide variety of styles. And we know that both teams felt quite strongly about how the draft played out last time. I think both teams were in agreement that G2 not only executed well, but they had the stronger draft. And I know that they're going to want to get revenge here on the red side today.
Yeah, definitely Rogue. Last time these two teams faced each other, Rogue was playing more scaling, a lot more hold on and get to the mid to late game. Try to lose as little as possible and then win the team fights, which they did in the end, but they lost way too much before that point. They had inhibitors down, Nexus turrets were falling. They were winning team fights, but G2 just split them up a lot. And they're going to go for the first pick, Jhin, which is interesting to me because lots of OPs are open here.
Yes.
You've still got things like the Azir, which Larssen does love.
Lilia also open. Perhaps G2 have an answer for him, but we know that Inspired is more than happy to play that champion, and he gets a lot of jungle advantages in the early game with how well he works with where he has pressure on a champion that can just speed roll through the jungle extremely quickly.
Yeah, and we've seen so many different things from the Rogue bot lane. We've even seen things like the Zyra Rakan and now the Caitlyn coming out into the Jhin. So
Lux maybe?
that's a Caitlyn Lilia, so they're saving third pick for the support, which means that you can either counter-pick G2 support blind pick, or you can pick a support on 3 like Lux, you said, and ban away 2 counters, things like the Hook champions, which naturally counter Lux, Nautilus, Blitzcrank, and Thresh is already taken out.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Of course, Jhin is also what Rekkles played last time, up against the Vayne coming out of Hansama. This time around, it's going to be a Caitlyn and the Lucian mid.
There it is, and there's Larssen Azir, which might get locked in as well. So I think the aggression coming out from G2 is the same as it was the last time these two teams met. But I think Rogue have a little bit more to work with in terms of the Lilia Caitlyn, a lot more early game, a lot more aggressive lanes.
This comp already, though.
Yeah, this is the problem.
Yeah.
If they do lock in the Azir, Caitlyn, is he going to go for the Azir?
Don't talk about the hovers. What do you want? Yeah.
Okay, he went for the Azir. I was wondering there for a second.
Convinced that Azir
It's the best pick there for sure. I mean, the thing is here, like Freddy said, there's so much range. Caitlyn Azir into Lucian. If Lucian dashes in once, he's already outmatched in range. If he has the culling on cooldown or anything like this, it's going to be really hard for him to team fight, especially when you're rolling things like the Nidalee and Jhin. So now I think what I'm looking at here is the support pool, because like we said, the Caitlyn needs a range support, something like the Lux, the Karma, the Morgana, and G2 can ban those things away, but Rogue can also ban away the hook champions like Mikyx and the Blitzcrank needs to be taken away if you're going to play these kind of
One of the things that G2 had as well last time was the ability to counterpick. So they could also guarantee themselves winning matchups This time around, they can't do that. Rogue can actually save their top lane pick for the very end, and they can guarantee a winning top side, which means that you could have pressure bot. You have to be careful in the 1v1, but they could also have pressure top, which means that they could have 2 winning matchups along with Lilia to set them up for a strong early game and a strong scaling late game team fight.
Yeah, I think what G2 could do here is ban away something like the Morgana and then blind pick the Alistar, but I think Rogue banning away blind pick tops from G2 or counter pick tops from G2 so that they can last pick their support. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Rogue blind pick top here on 4, something like a Sion maybe, some kind of frontliner for
What about a
Odoamne.
Shen? Would Shen fit here?
I think GP being open means that Shen is really hard to play into, especially when you're playing Caitlyn as 0 GP. Ults can be a bit annoying. So I think Rogue might be last picking support here.
Well, Gragas, of course, banned out, which is a flex for both teams in the top lane and in the support role. But we'll see what the last ban will end up being. I'm really excited to see what I have an inkling that the support search is going to be wacky, but maybe we end up with a Tom Kench. So
Seraphine ban.
Yeah.
Okay. So the I guess as you rightly said, Jox, the Tom Kench could act as a good answer to the Morgana. If it does come out, of course. But as you also highlighted, Kedra, it seems that they're going to save that for the last pick, and they're just going to get themselves a blind, strong top side of the map with the Gnar.
Makes a lot of sense. What do you blind pick in support here? I mean, the things like Alistar and Leona are open. You could play it safe and blind pick something like a Karma, because if they last pick Morgana, Karma is actually good into it. So maybe a blind pick Karma could work here. I like the fact that G2 have picked up frontline. We saw Quinn before from G2, and they played these aggressive lanes. But Leona blind pick makes the most sense. It doesn't get as punished as the Alistar. But now the question is, are they going to go for the Morgana, or are they going to go for the
relatively hard team to lock down, I would say, also on both sides, actually.
I think Braum could be really insane, because then it just adds to the already long range the Rogue have when it comes to the late game. Your lane will suffer a little bit, but I think that in regards to the whole comp, it just makes the game that much harder for G2 to play into the later game.
Yeah, definitely. But they did go for the Morgana. I think you were right in your point, Vedius. Having Braum against Lucian Jin Nidalee could have been a good strong point, but Caitlyn not winning lane isn't really a Caitlyn. So they've locked the Morgana. They have a winning bot. They have a very... I mean, Caps on the Lucian is going to be so aggressive to Larssen, so I would argue a losing mid in a sense. And top's nullified by the fact that Odoamne will have to push. They have a range matchup to a mini matchup. But this draft, I'd say both drafts are even. Rogue definitely outscaling here. But G2 running back what they ran before. Instead of having the Quinn, they've got a tank top, but they have a lot of early game there. I'm
really excited about this bot lane matchup. I think that Rogue have a strong ability to get a lot of plates early. I think the early Rift Heralds are going to be very important for Rogue. The sooner they can get those towers down, the sooner they can get this Caitlyn roaming around the map. I think the early game is going to be super important. We're guaranteed for a banger, that's for sure. Yeah, I'm just looking at the mid jungle for G2 here. You can't really go top side. They have to go bot, but Rogue have a winning bot lane. So keep your eyes on Caps and Jankos.
Let's see. The stage is set for this fight for first as G2 and Rogue hit the rift.
Welcome to the match of the season here, G2 versus Rogue. Straight out the gates, and I just want to get your take on these two team compositions, because to me, they are quintessential G2 and quintessential Rogue. G2 want to get scrappy and skirmish, and Rogue want to be in control and dictate the pace.
Exactly, and you heard the analyst desk talking about it too before the draft, setting up this idea that in, more chaotic early game states, that's exactly where G2 are going to be at home. So I think the real test for Rogue, hey guys, by the way, is to see if they can play that pressure game, the controlled game where there's not a lot of fighting, but it's more about controlling minion waves and using that pressure, of course, to gain an advantage, because Rogue, they're the farmers of the LEC. They get their advantages through just good downright laning.
Scary thing for me is that Rekkles does not think particularly highly of that playstyle. In the video that we had just before the analyst desk picked up and did the draft, he talked about good teams will just fight you. They'll just skirmish with you. And when we see G2 and Fnatic, we see exactly how well, Fnatic and G2 fight. They just get heavy kills. Yeah. Now, if Rogue are going to try that style, which they don't want to with this comp, they need to maintain control. They cannot allow G2 a window into the game.
Yeah, exactly. Rogue, there's a reason why, if you look at the regular season here, record between the two teams, Rogue 0-9 up against G2, and I think that's a little bit of the idea that Rekkles was talking about in that video, is that, frankly, against the best teams, they will surprise you. They'll find those edges, those windows you give, and they can punish you in them, but you can already see some really solid early laning from Larssen with the level 2 advantage over Caps, and showing why Azir is the champion, synonymous with Larssen, the best Azir in Europe.
Larssen played the Azir last time Rogue and G2 met and was able to drag that game out to 50 minutes, but Kadriel was talking about it. He said, keep your eyes on Caps and Jankos. You can see Caps getting bullied for the time being. It's what you expect in the early stages of the game as Jankos is beginning to clear out his camps. And I think in the Nidalee versus Lilia matchup, you really want to see an impact from Jankos. You really want to see him get involved in the early stages of the game because we know how powerful Lilia can be if she goes unchecked.
Yeah, the playstyle of G2 is very much the extension of Jankos' playstyle as a jungler. He definitely wants to get involved in the same way that Inspired is more playing around the pressure of his lane. So we'll see what Jankos is going to be able to do, because you look around the map, it is 3 pushing lanes for Rogue, and that is something that I think is so unique about the way that Rogue approach the game and the way that they draft, is somehow they continue to get away with these drafts where they have 3 winning or 3 pushing lanes early on and then also outscale their opposition. You can see Larssen just putting a beating on Caps. Caps is going to have to go back to base and reset, and without mid lane pressure, without Jankos being able to access Caps and say, hey buddy, let's run up to top lane, well, it becomes so much more challenging for Jankos to get a gank off, because that Gnar can be slippery, and a bot lane with a black shield, it's impossible to play against.
It absolutely is. Jankos and Inspired on nearby. This is going to turn into a 2v2 as Caps is just running down Larssen. First blood picked up solo, and now Inspired will be the next target. He's trying to run away. No flash available, and the spear is sidestepped. I mean, literally same place, same time, but at the end of the day, it's G2 that strike first.
Look, Larssen wasn't able to get back to base with the TP. He was trying to get Inspired into the play, but with the scrappiness, well, that's where G2 are going to thrive, and even the flash wasted there by Larssen is going to be lost. And if you actually go back in time and look at the best of 5 that these two teams played in the semifinals in summer of last year, it was all about the mid lane matchup. Caps and Larssen, there were the Akali picks all over the place, and they were solo killing each other, flip-flopping every single game. And the outcome of the mid lane determined the outcome of the game. And honestly, I was expecting it to be different in this one, but already Caps with the upper hand. That'll be huge for G2.
Especially when you think about the draft, that Larssen opted into this matchup, right? And we saw that play, Inspired and Larssen trying to jump onto Caps. Jankos just happened to be in the right place at the right time, as we haven't really looked too much at the bottom lane. As we do see Trymbi, by the way, on his 11th unique champion in 14 games here in the LEC. Definitely been one of the players that has stepped up and helped take Rogue to the next level. But reminder that Rogue won the regular season in summer last year. They've not picked up a regular season win against G2, and right now they're down first blood, but even on gold because of those 3 pushing lanes that we talked about.
And you'll notice that Rogue are deciding to let this lane push into them because their jungler was taking a reset. Jankos, they knew, was on the bottom side of the map. Now, as the resets come through, Inspired comes around, like, okay, let's push out this wave and take a reset for ourselves. And I would quickly like to look back at that middle lane, because the one key difference, even though Caps did get the first blood and kill Larssen, was because Caps used his TP before the play happened. Caps has not been able to go back to base. So the item difference in mid lane is actually favoring Larssen still, the HP, the mana, again, in the Rogue mid laner's favor. So he's going to continue to play forward here, and that's why I'd love to see Mikyx get in the area off of the reset. He's going to look for a play around mid.
Gonna be able to find Inspired in just a moment. Flash forward into the Zenith Blade. Shield of Daybreak picks up the kill, and the culling allows Caps to pick up the second, flawlessly executed.
That is just beautiful. That's everything you need to see out of Mikyx coming off that play. Because again, the lane, after the solo kill, was going to get a little bit rough. Now Jankos is on the ward.
Oh, Odoamne is going to hop away to safety. Got a flash available, gets away from at least the first spear as Jankos swaps into Cougar form. And despite taking a damage from Odo, it will be Wunder that picks up the final blow. I'm a little sad right now, but you cannot discount how good G2 are at their style, and Rogue drafted a team composition that is their preference, that is about control, that is about maintaining an advantage and building it up through pressure. But right now, they've just been jumped on and they've been ganked in both their solo lanes.
Playing the game style of, you know, small wins, the victories over CS, jungle camps, turret plates, etc., always comes at the risk that, well, if you leave yourself open, if you're always pressing forward on the map, you are going to be vulnerable at times. And G2 are the team to see that and to pounce. You can see exactly what G2 have been talking about, and a consistent talking point against Rogue. Even last year during the regular season, teams didn't really feel like they were the best team in the LEC, even though they they were at the top of the standings and ended up getting first place. No, it was, well, once the playoffs come around, that's all going to change. And I do feel like this year it has been very different. Rogue, with the addition of Odoamne in the top lane especially, have just looked near untouchable in a lot of their games here. But G2 are showing the kinks in the armor.
They absolutely are. The one thing I do want to highlight, though, is it's only a 600 gold lead, despite 3 kills. And CS advantage in the top lane, there's a small advantage on the way to Larssen as that wave is pushing into him. And Inspired is still farming up relatively well. Now, he hasn't been able to get involved in the kill as Jankos will pounce over the wall. Zenith Blade manages to get Mikyx onto Trymbi, but Jankos cannot and will not use the flash just yet. So Trymbi gets away with his life.
Trevor, I promised you before the cast I wasn't going to meme the Italy Spears, but that one really should have hit. That was a CC target. End of story.
I stand to be corrected, but I think Jankos has a lower accuracy on CC targets than moving
You know what?
ones.
That would not surprise me one bit. Now, Inspired was seen on the control board when he was clearing out his red buff. That's why G2 were setting up the play towards the bottom side. It still gets the flash off of Trymbi. You will see, though, Inspired using that information to waltz on into the enemy jungle and take away a blue buff. But the response is already coming out from G2. Caps, Jankos have realized it. Mikyx also on the way, but it feels like Lilia is maybe a little bit too speedy and will be able to skate up the river and get out of dodge no problem and hopefully see that ward. But if she uses the blast cone, that ward may go unseen for a long time. All right, he got it. Well done, Inspired.
Have to clear out the vision when you walk over it. Does so this time round, despite G2 having full information. And this is a really interesting game state where we are as we approach 10 minutes, because despite the fact that Rogue are still really close and competitive, because G2, almost every single proactive move they've made has paid off, you feel like they are just in control. Inspired will not contest the Rift Herald because Larssen was just arriving back in mid lane.
Yeah, Jankos is going to be able to get that one. That's the type of playmaking you need to see. I like Inspired just dropping a Q on the minion wave, making sure Larssen can fully shove that into the tower, see if the Raptor camp is going to be up. I think Hansama was able to get a turret plate in the bot side solo as well while that play was going on. There you go. You can see it. And now maybe we deny some minions from Rekkles. Jankos already on a beeline towards bottom lane. No TPs ready for the soul laners, but it is Larssen on the move first.
Did look like Caps was following him. It's not going to lead to a tower dive just yet. Rogue will be content to start off the first dragon of the game. Jankos is nearby and could contest. You see some support from Caps, but too late. No vision in the river.
Yeah.
Don't want to step into the darkness.
You will see the difference, though, in how these two junglers are approaching it. Like, Jankos is almost trying to invite a fight coming up towards the top side of the map. Here, though, Inspired, he knows he has full prio in bot and in mid lane as well, so it's a very easy secure on that Ocean Drake. And I think that, as far as Rogue is concerned, especially with solo plates going on to Hansama, they're feeling very good about themselves. I'd love to see the gold. Yeah, there you go. 400 gold advantage for Hans on the bot side of the map. Exactly what you want to see with a Caitlyn Morgana lane. And I think that Morgana is going to offer a lot of value to Rogue the later we get into this one. Because out of jungle and mid lane, there's no real CC coming through from G2. G2 have to figure out some way outside of the Sion ultimate to bait out that Black Shield. And it's likely going to be, you know, Rekkles with his W trying to snare someone up, bait that Black Shield. Because once that goes down, that's when the floodgates open. That's when Wunder and Mikyx can come flying in off their flanks as well. But while the Black Shield is ready, it becomes much more challenging for them to press that go button.
It's going to be interesting to see the target selection for Trymbi, as he's got one Black Shield, but he's got himself Inspired, Larssen, or Hansama as all potential targets. And of course, execution in those team fights will be crucial. We are still as even as the game can be in terms of power. It's 3 kills to 0, but the dragon in Rogue's back pocket is the first dragon that G2 have lost in over a week. They got all 7 Drakes in the games they played last weekend. They are looking more and more dominant. And I think that's important to call out because Rogue, I think, started Spring looking very strong. And they've diversified their champion pools and they've tried a few things out here and there. But G2 are looking more and more terrifying with each passing week. And this game could be a preview of the finals. This game could be the #1 and #2.
I think it is, Trevor. I'll say it right now. Here we go. Mikyx goes in.
There's fine Larssen this time around. The curtain is called. Defensive flash from Larssen. He manages to escape with the help of the Sand Soldiers, but the 4th shot, and Jankos pouncing into the fray. The stun will catch out Trymbi, and he's trying to root down 2. Jankos is able to escape, but he gets put to sleep, and Hansama's on the board. The first for Rogue. That's a dash forward for Caps. He manages to take out Trymbi. Now Inspired and Hansama running for their lives. G2 are setting up for a dive.
It's a big fight there from G2. Jankos is around the tower looking to see what he can find for himself. He's going to end up walking out of this one, but G2 again seeing Larssen and absolutely bullying the man. 3 deaths in just 12 minutes, and it's because Mikyx continues to target Rogue's mid.
That Leona pick is paying off for G2, but the team composition is exactly what you wanted to see. This is how G2 like to play the game. They like to pick those fights, like to put pressure all around them, and ideally get advantages through kills. You can see this one happening as Larssen will hold off the Rift Herald for the time being. And this is the first now meaningful gold lead, plus 1,400 at the 12-minute mark.
Yeah, and you can see there, I mean, in this replay, even how frustrating Leona can be against an Azir, because the Zenith Blade lands, sure, you still knocked her away, but then what comes out after it? The Solar Flare, right in the middle of the animation there, so it's very challenging to escape if you are Larssen, especially if the Black Shield isn't immediately ready, which it wasn't. Trymbi wasn't quite in range, and then stunned up against the wall. They tried to turn it around, but I think the sleep maybe runs out on Mikyx a little bit early. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day, though, because Caps pumps out so much damage, and there's simply no threat left to put on him from the Rogue side.
I mean, Caps 3-0, that Cull about to pop. He's got the Essence Reaver already, and he's been able to just really bully Larssen. And
he's huge.
Ender, you talked about it. The last time these teams met in playoffs, it was the story of the mid lane, and it was whoever gets the advantage gets ahead. And we keep looking at Larssen. He is in the discussion being one of the best mids, but he needs to be able to take down Caps to be able to claim that title.
Yeah, and it started off with a solo kill again in this one. Caps coming back off of the TP, and we're going to see the game continue to be so focused around Caps from the G2 side, because the playmakers are absolutely Mikyx, and then I think we're going to see Wunder get involved a little bit later on, but the fights are going to happen around Caps. Right now, it's the mid lane, but now that that turret is down, well, do we see Caps go into a side lane? Do Rekkles and Mikyx post up around mid instead? And then can G2 find Rogue as they're rotating between lanes? Because that's where Rogue are going to be very, very vulnerable. If you look at Rogue's composition, they don't have the strongest front line available to them. Realistically, you have a Gnar with a Black Shield ready to keep him safe from being CC locked down here, but Rogue are going to run into an issue if they are playing from a significant deficit, if this continues to get larger and larger, and they have to find some way of getting vision around on the map. That's where G2 can hit them hard.
2,500 gold as we're now making our way out of the laning phase. A little bit more movement. Caps goes to the bottom lane. Do you start to consider this a significant disadvantage on the Rogue side?
A little bit, yeah. I still think Rogue have a lot of good scaling elements, but the thing is, G2, they've always been known for the 15 to 20 minute mark. And we're about to hit the 15-minute mark, and it's because G2 are the best skirmishing team the West has ever seen, quite frankly. So good at playing around vision, so good at getting into your jungle, and once again, we're seeing them on the hunt towards bot.
Mikyx doesn't have the Solar Flare available. Trymbi may be forced to flash, gets rooted in place, and the culling just deletes him. I think holding on to that flash a little too long. Trymbi is obliterated, and now G2 will set up for their first Drake of the game.
Rumbling goes into the top lane. Wunder clears out the ward with the Dark Harvest, because why not on that side? Doesn't really get great use out of the other keystones in this melee versus ranged matchup, and G2 will be able to get the Infernal Drake. So very good stuff from G2, and again, we're going to see this get even worse for Rogue, it feels like, unless they can find some way to stop the bleeding, because right now the outer turrets are still up. And as soon as we see G2 playing off of the deep vision they have in the Rogue jungle, you know, when the blue buff spawns, they're going to be waiting there for the second Inspired tries to face check. When the Gromp spawn, the Raptor, all these timers are what G2 are going to start to think about in the next 5 minutes. And we may very well see this gold lead get even larger here.
I mean, G2 have earned this. They've taken every single kill. They've focused Larssen very, very heavily. In the last few minutes, Trymbi's just been caught out in the river. And it's going to be very difficult for Rogue to play these fights from a defensive stance, but fortunately, with the Morgana, with the Azir, they do have some tools to fall back and push G2 away.
See, the thing is, 4 players from G2 are on the way. They have mid lane priority because they've got a duo there. Rogue, Trymbi, and Hans cannot be here.
They absolutely cannot. The spear goes out. That's another tag. Dash comes up from Rekkles, will not find the route. The Dark Binding buys some time. Rekkles is going to dash forward thanks to the Gale Force. Trymbi still got that flash from earlier, holds onto it, but the tower is gone, the pressure is done. Flash and heal used from Hans Sama. He simply cannot stand long enough because G2 members will look to kill him.
Caps gets a little tickle there and should be looking for a reset soon. I almost feel like there's a case to be made for leaving that outer turret up, because then Hans Sama and Trymbi can never find farm again effectively, but I think G2 are just probably going to run this same play back on the top side of the map. You can see, though, once you take down that mid lane tower with a duo there, so easy to just full shove the wave. Larssen can't do anything to try and respond. I think Inspired's best bet, drop the Herald here. but you can't very well go for a dive. Sion, far too tanky. Even if you do kill him, he has the passive there to clear away any minions to finish off a kill and buy time for the rest of the team to respond. And you saw that too. Mikyx, all the way around the world, goes down to bot lane, then sprints back up top to make sure a dive doesn't happen.
The scary thing for me is thinking about how Rogue get back into this game. They have to hold off. They cannot concede Baron. And it feels to me like a flank from Inspired or Odo. Maybe one of the only ways, is Odo is now under a lot of pressure.
Oh, but he's baiting. Caps is right inside the fog of war right now. He's just barely seen, and Odo will back away. This is what I was talking about. We're going to see the playmakers of Wunder and Mikyx go in where Caps is. So if you ever see that ultimate and it's not just the farm alarm, Caps better be right behind him.
He absolutely is. He's got himself the Gale Force completed. Odo's about to gnaw out, and Jankos unable to find Spear this time around. No support from the rest of Rogue. And Caps will just keep hammering away on the tower. It's very clear G2 are looking for map domination and trying to push these waves in.
Here's the thing, though, is Rogue are responding to this attack so much better than the last time around the bottom lane, because now it's, you know, jungler trading pressure on the opposite side of the map, top laner backing away while they're able to take that turret. I actually really dislike using the Rift Herald in the bottom lane there. It's going to accomplish virtually nothing. It's just going to chunk out this tower, but Rogue are never going to be able to play for the spot lane tower, not for a very, very long time at the very least. And because this Lucian is so turbo fed, it seems like it's not like Rogue have a good side lane answer to push in there and try to threaten for that inner turret for an eventual inhibitor. So I would have much rather seen that used around mid. That being said here, Rogue are not going to have any pressure on the map, it feels like, for a very long time outside of this red buff steal, because G2 are going to start that oppressive march forward towards Rogue's base.
Very good timing there from Larssen, but he still gets rooted. Jankos will not be able to find the spear as there's a flash away from Larssen. You may have just seen Hansama disconnecting from the game. As you know, we do play in delay for competitive integrity reasons. There was a pause a few minutes in the future of the live game. The players have resolved it and continued playing.
All right here, 4K gold for G2. There's an Everfrost on this Azir, which I think is a pretty clever pickup. Everfrost, of course, has been picking up a lot more popularity ever since the buffs to it. The Kindle gem making the build path nicer, the ratio a little bit bigger on that active and the cast time shorter too. And I think specifically into a champion like a Nidalee that wants to jump on you, well, you can CC her, so that means Jankos never enticed to go in. If Caps ever uses dash, again, you can try to set up these types of things, even just self-peel against a Leona. All of these going to be good options for the Azir, because Rogue's comp is a lot about keeping range. And, well, they found Jankos.
They have indeed. He's going to flash over the wall, get put to sleep. And there's no further follow-up. Dark timing for the snipe and the burn. It's Inspired that gets the kill. And that is very important on a champion like Lilia. Inspired still trying to make his impact on the game. It's been played around him. His lanes have been bullied. But now we're getting to the stage where he has to have an impact in these team fights and skirmishes.
I'm honestly shocked that he got the kill with the burn after the binding. Oh no! This TP in from Larssen doesn't look like G2 want to tango. Their jungler's off the map, so Rogue may be able to steal away this Drake, and that'll be huge for them. They've already got the Ocean, and for Rogue, it is all about biding their time.
The G2, on the other hand, it's just push, push, push. Like, Caps is the man of the moment. 200 CS, 4 kills. He was able to pick up that solo kill despite junglers being nearby in the laning phase and has now taken over the game. I think it is very important to call out, though, that Larssen is still farming, is still very relevant, and can still have an impact. It's just significantly harder with the state of the rifts.
And look, we saw almost this exact same game play out the first time the two teams met this split. G2 got out to a huge early game lead. They had a very, side lane focused 1-3-1 style that didn't really have great team fight tools. And Larssen's Azir was able to find picks, was able to find a lot of kills and stall that game out for an absurd time, like 50+ minutes, something like that. Now this time I do think G2 have a more well-balanced team composition, so it should be easier for them to close, but you can never count Larssen's Azir out of a fight.
You can't, and in the previous game, Hansama was playing the Vayne. This time around, he's going to have a lot more range, a lot more safety at least, to try and stay at arm's length from the engages that G2 will throw down. But my eyes are still going to be on Trymbi, the newest member to the team, the least experienced member. He's got a single black shield. And if he doesn't pick the right target once the AoE CC, the AoE engages come in, that can also be a game changer. If Larssen gets a couple extra seconds to stay alive, to reposition, to get the Emperor's Divide, It's going to be about execution, and it's going to be about information. They need to know when.
It absolutely is, because Rogue isn't like your standard front to back with the tank front line to sort of zone people away. No, it's a zone control composition with a lot of good abilities. Traps, Azir soldiers, you know, even Morgana with their ultimate. All of these things are good at sort of keeping your opponents at arm's length, but it means that you have to be in the right position when you set up for a fight. You need to have your trap line set up so that you can't be flanked. Larssen has to be quick on that Emperor's Divide as well, and once these abilities go down, that give big windows over towards G2.
A lot of damage coming down onto Mikyx. He's the target, forced to flash away. Does escape with his life. No further follow-up on the side of Rogue, but a couple of ultimates used.
Yeah, Rogue also have nasty chain CC, the sleep into a trap, all these things, but G2 just got damaged, man. Caps is out of his mind.
Underneath the tower, Caps takes one extra shot, and the damage from Hans Sama is huge. He's got 2 items completed already, but defending a tower is difficult.
Larssen, how crazy is he feeling?
He's got no flash available. The Everfrost will buy some time, but look at G2's pathing. Caps going around, looking for the Tribush. Emperor's Divide, the slide, the glide. Larssen needs to buy some time. Sends out the Sand Soldiers, but cannot interrupt Wunder. And Caps manages to support another kill for G2.
Larssen feeling a little bit too powerful there. Thought he had a good flank after Rogue dealt so much damage, but now it's just G2 inside of Rogue's jungle without a care in the world, finding these flanks. Caps is going to TP back onto the Rift. Do G2 want to go for an Insta Baron? I think that may be the play if there's not a fight here.
Oh, 20 seconds, no teleports. Larssen will be late to the party. Now Inspired, his ultimate may just about be available. He's got the flash if he needs to get inside the pit. The rest of Rogue, what is the call? Inspired north of the pit, the 3 members of Rogue making their way down.
It's so hard, it just has to be a Baron steal here because Odo has no rage built up. Trymbi not with an ultimate, not in position, but Mikyx is low.
Odoamne starting to charge up that Narbar. Baron is down to 2,000. Inspired's looking for it. He flashes forward and he's killed. G2 focus him down. The smite is removed as Mikyx loses his life. G2 will be able to pick up the Baron. And now, curtain call, tagging Rogue members as they run away for their lives.
Yeah, you can see there, G2 know there's no good way for Rogue to start a fight there outside of a really good binding coming in. It's the single target pick tool. So G2 say, let's go on the Baron. Mikyx can sacrifice his life, and they were ready to instantly blow up Inspired the second he tried to get close to that pit. A good Baron execution, and a better call there from G2 after getting the pick onto Larssen to get Caps back into the fight with the TP. Use that tempo, and at 24 minutes, my man's got 3 items and an extra crit cloak on top of that. Caps is completely fed out of his mind.
Look at the gold graph. You know, plus 2,000 gold on the closest member. And the next one is Hans Sama, who's spent most of this game sitting on the side lane. He's picked up 2 of the kills for Rogue and an assist, and so many plates as well. Remember that. But I think what is a big takeaway for me here is when you looked at these team compositions, when we came in and we looked at the way both teams play the game, the question you ask is, can Rogue contest G2? How far up has their ability grown since the last time they faced? They won the regular season last year. That's a blemish on G2's record. And today, G2 came in very focused, very stern, and they wanted to make a statement. They've been able to beat G2 beat Rogue while Rogue are playing their own style.
Yeah, there is exactly one blemish on G2's record since the LEC began, and that was losing the regular season last summer. Now, that on paper doesn't really mean anything, but if you guys were watching Carlos get interviewed last night by Code Miko, you know that losing anything don't feel too good to G2, so they don't want to let it happen this time around. These 2 teams tied in the standings, but G2 in a great position to jump out to a undefended first place.
Sole control of first is what G2 are pushing into the base for. Baron empowered minions will open up the mid inner turret. That's the 5th that they've been able to secure. Crucially as well, that'll be a 2-0 in the head-to-head. So if G2 drop another game, when it comes to these tiebreaker rules, that will give them an advantage in taking the first place when we head into playoffs and allow G2 the option of their opponents.
And Rogue, to go back to this idea of like, can Rogue contest G2? We've seen them, you know, just continue to improve and build off of last summer. And the biggest takeaway, I think, for them has been that they can play so many different styles. My question is, do we get to see all those in a best of 5, the fated best of 5 we expect these 2 teams to eventually play come playoffs time? Rogue have an arsenal. They have a playbook of a lot of different things they can throw G2's way. This was the very classic, you know, a lot of strong lanes that also scale well into the later stages of the game, and they were punished by some early scrappiness coming out of the G2 side, showing that G2 have the number. This would be the 10th loss in the row for Rogue up against G2 in the regular season. down 5k gold. The best thing they can hope to do is stall out as the Baron buff goes away and they still hold on to all their inhibitors.
I'm going to go back to something you said a little while ago, Ender, that you expect this to be the finals.
I do.
I agree. I expect Rogue to be better than the teams, well, every other team except G2. But I'm going to be very honest with you. I'm a little disappointed in this game. I think Rogue can play better than this. I think Rogue are able to challenge G2. And today, they weren't able to show it. I mean, the last time they played, it was 50 minutes. Yes, comps and G2 style have to be taken into consideration, but we know that Rogue can do better than they're demonstrating today. And you still have to give them some credit, right? They haven't just fallen over. As Inspired will get obliterated by Jankos. The Solar Flare catches Larssen. The Emperor's Divide does nothing to slow or stop G2. And despite Odo buying some time, the rest of G2 are collapsing, surrounding, and crushing Rogue's hopes. Odo will be the next target as he gets rooted down from a long range. A dash forward from the Gale Force. Another
Mikyx again!
Zenith Blade. Every single tool lands. And G2 Esports are inside the base of Rogue.
Mikyx showed up to play today, from the early roams to mid to again finding Larssen in these fights over and over and over. G2 are flashing onto Larssen. They're going to finish him off before this game is done. G2 are going to take down Rogue.
The uncontested first seed during the regular season. G2 Esports dominate Rogue, turn their attention to Inspired. Will there be some showmanship? It feels like there just might be. That was personal as Inspired picks up a kill onto Jankos. Watching his Nexus go down. G2 are your best team.
Just a quick little jungle dip before the Nexus explodes, but G2, they came in. And a big question for us was going to be, what style of game do we see played? Do Rogue get their controlled early game? Do G2 make it scrappy? Well, there were kills abundant, and it was off of early game wins from Rogue. Larssen was crushing that mid lane, then with the TP gets solo killed, and it all spiraled out of control.
The question I ask, those kills that were picked up in the early game, do you fault Rogue? Or is it great play from G2? You go back to those very early kills that unlock caps. Once caps was unlocked, the game was pretty much done.
Look, I think when you play against G2, you get swept up in the moment a little bit, because I felt like Rogue were going for more fights than I would expect them to play with a composition like this. I thought, like, Inspired went around mid lane because they thought they had a 2v1. Well, it wasn't. Jankos was there, and it's these types of things, G2 surprise you, and it's always something you have to be hyper aware of in a match.
It is crazy impressive from G2. Your Kia Player of the Game nominees at LEC on Twitter, Jankos, Caps, and Mikyx will give you all the takeaways from G2's win as they've secured sole possession of first place.
I support Mikyx now. I'm sorry, Odo. I'm sorry!
there's no good.
Welcome back to the LEC. After a dominating performance, G2 secures first place in the LEC, and I'm joined by none other than Jankos. Jankos, congratulations.
Hello.
How are you feeling about? Hello. How are you feeling about taking down Rouge and stepping one place closer to the first place in the regular season, or is it more like another field day for G2?
Well, I am pretty happy since I think this week was very difficult for G2. Rekkles has, I think, problem with his tooth, and he needs to have like it removed. He needs a surgery, so he's like on kind of antibiotics, so he doesn't feel pain. And then Caps got food poisoning, so he's kind of dying as well. So we couldn't scrim yesterday, and I thought today we would like run it down hard, and I felt like I was the only one running it down. I felt like my team was supposed to run it down with me, but I was the only one playing kind of bad. So I'm happy that I got carried, but also I thought we would be on the same page and all of us would run it down together.
Oh wow, that's such an interesting thing to learn, given that like G2 had a really good performance today. And Jankos, I'm really sorry. Maybe this is getting a bit old, but I was told that when I appear on an LEC broadcast, I simply have to ask this as a due tradition. Are you happy with your success rate on your Middle East Spheres today?
No, of course not. Like, okay, so my Nidalee, so far, I think actually won every game in competitives. Ever since Worlds last year, I think we won like one game against Genji, because I think I played only one game, maybe 2 games, I don't remember well. And now I also won 3 games in LEC. And I felt like the 2 previous games, I was playing quite well actually. But I feel like this game, I was missing every single spear possible. And even the ones that shouldn't be possible, I was still missing them. And that was like, I was kind of throwing up in my own throat. Like during the game, I was picking my question mark in myself. I couldn't believe how bad I was playing. At the same time though, I felt like I was, fine on the map and playing the game in a correct fashion with my team. But as for my own performance on the champion, I think that was pretty disgusting.
Oh no, I'm sorry that I brought the Nidalee, but the reason why I mentioned it is, back in 2020, G2 saw immense success through, playing around the map, playing the side lanes, and on the center of that was you playing a lot of tanking champions, a lot of ganking champions, and ever since 2020 Worlds, G2 started to adopt a lot of around you playing carry jungles, and the way you describe it, and you mentioning that your Nidalee actually has a very successful win rate in the LEC, would you say that G2 has now comfortably adjusted to playing around you, playing around the carry jungle banner?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think we are for sure better at the carry jungle style than we used to be, because my lane are not as reliant, and if I'm playing a jungle that requires farming and not helping lanes too much, then they can play a champion that allows them to farm without me and be fine. For example, I feel like this game Caps was smurfing a lot during his laning phase, even though his laning phase didn't go as it was supposed to, and he got pushed in on Lucian. He still got a solo kill somehow, and then Mikyx ganked, and he got a second kill, and we could snowball the game with Lucian having the advantage. So, overall, I think I feel way more confident playing the style. I think my team also feels way more confident playing the style, and if nothing changes until MSI or Worlds, I think we will have a better performance, or I will have a better performance than we did at Worlds 2020.
Because that was actually going to be my final question, that recently, last week, Riot has actually announced that MSI will be going ahead, and many G2 players have again quoted that they really missed having MSI last year, as well as wanting to perform again on an international tournament this year. So Jankos, I am aware that many G2 players refer to international metas, are you confident that G2 is up to date with the international metas and also be able to face some of the top international teams in LPL, LCK, maybe NA? I'm not sure.
I mean, I do watch some of the other regions. I think that currently LCK and LPL are 2 patches or 1 patch behind. I think they're still playing on 1.11.3. And I mean, even Damwon is inting. I feel like their early games are not what it used to be at Worlds, but they are still insane at teamfights, so they like pull out a lot of these wins out of nowhere, kind of. But definitely, I feel like we will be confident. If we were to make it to MSI, we still have to win Europe, and you know, we are still the MSI champions after all, since MSI was not held last year, so no one could take the trophy away from us. So we will. Right now, it is announced that it will be in Iceland, so we will be trying to make the trophy stay with us in Europe if we were to make it to MSI, of course.
Okay, thank you so much for your valuable insight and best of luck for the rest of the LEC and possible run to MSI. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for more about this game, we'll send it over to Jankos.
Thank you very much, Ashley. How cool is it to be on a broadcast together and like tossing? I like it. It's very fun. Sorry, just fangirling right here. Also, great job, you know, throwing shade at NA, throwing shade at the Middle East peers. You've integrated very well into this LEC team. But as for the game, the reigning champions proved that they still got it, pulling off a very dominating win over Rogue. Now, I got to ask you with this draft, we did the draft on the desk. You were so happy with both sides. A lot of opportunities for Rogue. What the hell happened?
It's surprising to me because Larssen was winning the lane and Rogue had 3 pushing lanes and their jungle matchups pretty much even, but it all just fell apart in the mid lane. Larssen making a mistake on the TP, dying 1v1, and then Mikyx somehow roaming to mid, even though he has no prio in bot. Wunder roaming to mid when he has no prio in top. I feel like Rogue had all the prio they need to actually impact the map, but G2 were just always collapsing first, and this was the first mistake that Rogue made.
Yeah, the fact that Caps was able to get this solo kill is very uncharacteristic of Larssen, but here's that Mickey roam that you were talking about, Kadril. The fact that Mickey was able to find his way into the mid lane, play through Caps, but it very much stems from what we were talking about in the draft. Mid jungle was where we wanted to pay attention to. Get Caps ahead, get him snowballing, and then influence the rest of the map. But it wasn't just him. Jankos was finding plays and picks all across the board, and G2, the early game lead that they needed, they were able to get.
There's something I want to follow up on because you say like the lane state was actually in favor of Rogue and actually Wunder shouldn't have roamed or Mikyx shouldn't have roamed if it wasn't the ideal play. Is this something we see from G2 more often? They kind of break the way the game that is played so that the opponent thinks, all right, if we play it correctly, nothing should happen here. And they put that on his head? It's
hard to say, but I think the biggest thing you contribute, I mean, and we'll take bot lane, for example, right? Caitlyn Morgana should have that Leona on the tower all game, but there's always windows where the Caitlyn Morgana has to go back to base, where Mikyx can match them on the base and instead roam mid. Now, you would expect him going mid, that Rogue could trade something on the bot side, but the only real thing that Rogue's bot lane got was 2 platings in that lane phase. They didn't get a CS advantage, they didn't get XP advantages, they didn't swap for Herald, they didn't unlock the map. All they got was 2 platings. For Mikyx roaming mid, shutting down Larssen and snowballing Caps' solution. So basically, Mickey was playing to his win conditions. He knew that Rekkles would not be able to win the 2v2 alongside him just because of the champions, the matchup. They would never get the push. But I feel like Rogue should have been able to match G2's roams or at least be able to ward them off to stop the roams coming into mid. Yes, Larssen did make a mistake on the first play, but Larssen was still winning that lane.
And this is what surprised me ultimately, that while he did do fine, like Larssen died a lot more than I expected. And like as we move into the next fight, like this Baron is basically where the game was over. Like you could argue that the game was over before because of how well they used it.
Yeah.
But like Larssen here, out of position, just gets collapsed by both Wunder and Caps, which then sets up for the Baron. And all I can sit there and say is like, this was an uncharacteristic performance from Mr. Consistent himself, the man in the mid that we often rely on to tank these ganks and get through what can be very difficult lane phase.
Yeah, I think even from my experience last year, Larssen is one of the hardest mid laners to gank in the entire game. After that slip up in the level 4 in the 1v1 kill, I feel like Larssen kind of fell apart, and I feel like the whole of Rogue fell apart alongside him. I feel like they were all split up non-stop across the map. They were never together. You saw Inspired go for the steal there, his team doesn't follow him. And then the next fight on their red buff entrance, all of Rogue are split, G2 are grouped up, they run them down, they kill them all, and Rogue can't win fights if they're not grouped up with this comp.
Honestly, disappointing performance out of Rogue. I think it's fair to say that they have to go back to the drawing board as we approach the playoffs and this possible matchup that we'll see in a best-of-5 on the other side. G2, after last week, also this week, now against Rogue in a fight for first, just playing at a very, very good level. Kia player of the game, Caps with 50% of the votes. Justice for the support to roam to the mid lane, right?
Right, for sure, yeah. Mikyx is honored. Like I said, support is jungle diff and support jungle diff is mid diff. So, Caps really got helped out there. And I mean, I will argue that Caps, I think credit to Larssen just for winning the lane phase in the early stages, because Lucian should win that lane, but like Jankos said in the interview, Caps has had food poisoning, so he might be a little bit off from what you would expect. But yeah, Mikyx definitely stepped up this game alongside Jankos, definitely helped their carries out to the mid to late game.
My final point is just that what is crazy to me is that we had question marks around whether Rekkles would improve this G2 roster. And I don't know if Rekkles has necessarily made this G2 better, but they are playing much better. They are crisp, clean, calculated, while still keeping that aggression. Like, this G2 roster is just terrifying.
They look scary. Imagine they didn't have food poisoning. All right, well, SK Gaming, they're up next, and they have been an unstoppable force themselves over the last couple of weeks, and they're looking to continue their winning streak against last place Vitality.
Lovely.